Ahoy, this is Zdenka. Nobody likes blurry photos. New photographers can get very frustrated, especially if they are submitting their photos to stock agencies and get frequent rejections over blurry photos. And this can happen with any camera, even with a smartphone. I felt exactly the same way when I was starting 16 years ago. So in this video, let's go through 11 reasons why you most likely end up with a blurry photo and how you can fix it. Also, winner from last camera challenge will be announced in today's video, and new creative camera challenge will start today where you can win $50 American gift card. This is not sponsored by anybody, this is coming strictly from me. Number one reason for blurry photos is usually a low shutter speed. We all think that we can hold the camera steady in low shutter speeds, but reality might be quite different. Once you look at the photo on a computer, this is a sound of a fast shutter speed. And this is a sound of a low shutter speed, which is very difficult to hold steady. So how do you know what shutter speed you should be using? Well, that will depend on the lens you are using and also on your personal minimum shutter speed. Let's talk about the lenses first. Obviously, shutter speed will depend on the creative result you are going after, but the general rule of thumb is that the longer lens you are going to use, the faster shutter speed you have to set. If I'm going to be using this 50mm lens, I will set the minimum shutter speed to 1/50th. If I use a 60mm lens, I'll set it to 1/60th. If I use 200mm lens, I'll set it to 1/200th minimum. The longer the lens, the more shake you will get. So with telephoto lenses, you need to have faster shutter speed unless you have a lens with electronic stabilization built in. This 7A to 200mm lens has that. So I can go way slower with the shutter speed, but I still need to be very cautious how low I can actually go. They say that you can go up to 5 steps slower, but I would still take a test photos, series of test photos to know for sure. In fact, you should test your personal minimum shutter speed. I'd say with all lenses you use, take test photos at different shutter speeds, start with high shutter speed and then go low. Look at the results on a computer and see where it starts to be a problem. My hands might shake more than yours. It depends on how many cups of coffee I had that day, or if I didn't have any, if I'm way too tired. Moving on to the reason number 2, and that could be just as simple as holding the camera incorrectly. How many times I've seen people holding the camera like this. One hand here, second one under the lens, elbow tight and close, very solid stand, feet apart. If you are using a viewfinder, bring it close to you. You will get that third point of stabilization. If you use screen like me, still keep the elbows close and tight grip on the camera. If you use camera straps, that will also help to stabilize the shot. In low light, you can use something like a wall to lean on. When I take a shot, I usually hold a breath as well, especially if I want to get a very steady shot. This applies to smartphones as well. How many times I've seen people walking around, taking snapshots like this, just snapping away. Hold it with both hands. Tight grip with both cameras, like this. Especially if you are taking photos above a pool. Because I lost a lens in the pool. Long story, moving on. Another reason, which is very obvious before I get to other reasons like wrong focus, is simply not using a tripod when you should be using a tripod. Low light, or when you are trying to be creative and you need intentionally use lower shutter speed or long exposure. For that reason, you should always have a tripod in your kit. And I know carrying around extra things like tripod can get annoying. You can also option for lightweight monopod, which can give you more freedom as it is easier to move around with it, but it will certainly help in reducing camera shake and blurry photos. Let me return to smartphone. On this iPhone, there is something called automatic night mode. For that, you definitely need a tripod. Now, I tested it a few times. I was taking the photos handheld and it always turned out blurry. Now, many people don't realize that they can actually turn it off. So if you don't have a tripod and you're taking a photo at night and you always end up blurry, make sure that you actually turn that night mode off. Then you can take a quick snapshot. Blurry photos can also be because you are focusing on the wrong thing, and on top of it, you might have the wrong focus mode, which will make you focus on the wrong thing while you're trying to focus. Are you confused? Just teasing. Let's talk about this camera here and smartphones as well. When you buy a camera, the default autofocus setting is usually auto area. What is that? When you half press the button, you will see many squares popping up everywhere. The camera will automatically select what it thinks it is the best to focus on. If I move the camera a bit and keep pressing the button, you will see that the squares will pop up somewhere else pretty much every time. This mode is okay for most of the general photography, but if you are going to use a very wide aperture like f1.8, where you will have only a tiny portion sharp and everything else blurry, this focusing mode will cause trouble. Or if you will have an object placed at the edge of the frame, it's going to be very difficult for you to focus on what you want. There are two more focusing modes you need to get familiar with. One is AFS spot autofocus, and the other one is AFC continuous autofocus. Spot autofocus is used for still objects. When you use this, you will see a little square. Get that square on what you want sharp, half press and hold the shutter button, and then recompose the image. Once you are ready, finish the shot by completely pressing the button down. Continuous autofocus is used to track movement throughout the frame. If you take photos of a person moving through the frame, this is the one to use. On a smartphone, I see many people take photos like this. They just press the shutter button, they just point, and they shoot. Tap on the screen and select what you want in focus. You can lock it as well by pressing and holding, and then you can still recompose the shot the way you want, especially if you use lenses like standard or telephoto and you are fairly close to the object. Tap on the screen what you want in focus. This lens has the widest aperture f1.4 and the narrowest one is f16. If you set it too wide, f1.4, while you are trying to take, for example, a photo of a group of objects, this might be reason number 5 for blurry photos. f1.4 will give you a very narrow area, which will be sharp. The rest will be blurry. This is called the depth of field. It is great if you want to take a photo of an object which will be isolated and the background will be nice and blurry. But if you want more area and focus, you need to increase the aperture. If you take shot of group of people, for example, at least f5.6, the more of an area you want in focus, the higher the number needs to be. If you take photos with a very wide aperture, again, f1.4, there might be one more reason why you might end up with blurry photos, and that could be reason number 6. You are way too close to the object. Each lens has a minimum focusing distance. For example, when I was taking photos of this flower with my other camera, Sony, and I had a 50mm lens on it, as I was too close to the flower, the front of the flower was blurry and only the edges were sharp. If I moved back a little bit more, I would have the front of the photo sharp, as now the lens would be able to focus. If you try to take shots which are super close, and again, you cannot get closer because of this minimal focusing distance, it is better to get a lens which is dedicated for that purpose, like a macro lens. Learn more about the lens you are using. Get to know your lens. On the other hand, you might be simply too far away from the object. If you are using such a low aperture setting, you might not be able to focus correctly on the object. You can be too close even when you are taking photos with a smartphone, with a lens like a standard lens, for example. The closer you get, the more blur you will introduce in the background. Try to move away to see if that is what you are looking for in the shot. Or if you are too far away from your object, move closer to focus easier. I'm gonna keep going with f1.4. So if you have that aperture set on a camera, you have your camera nicely sitting on a tripod, and you are trying to take a photo of a very specific area, or even if you are using a macro lens, for example, or you're taking a photo of a landscape in low light, and you cannot focus correctly, you're not getting exactly what you want. Ditch the autofocus, switch it to manual. Use the focusing ring to select the area you want in focus, and then take the shot. Let's take a quick break and announce the winners of the last Creative Camera Challenge, which was the reset. Third place goes to this photo, golden moody shot of trees. Second place goes to this photo taken by Samsung S9 Plus. And the winner, who is getting a $50 Amazon gift card, is Janie. The caption of this photo is, "Because even though the house is old, the sun still shines through it to make it beautiful and give hope. Taken with Canon M50 and Sigma lens. Edited in Lightroom." Congratulations! Let's continue. The opposite to too wide aperture is too narrow aperture. The reason to blurry photos, number 7. If you shoot a landscape, you want more of an area in focus, so you will aim for higher numbers. If you select f16 and higher, f22 for example, your shots might actually end up looking softer because the little details in the shot will start looking blurry. It's called diffraction optical effect. What you want is to select a little bit wider aperture, like f11 or f12 for example. Motion blur can be reason number 9. If you don't want that effect, well, what is it? You have set a lower shutter speed, you take a photo of an object which doesn't move, but in the background you have objects which are moving like cars, and they end up blurry. Lots of times this is used intentionally when you want to create an effect like that. I love creating photos like that, I love using that effect, but if you don't want it, if you want everything sharp, then you need to use way faster shutter speed. Pop it up. What ISO do you normally use when you take photos in low light? Are you taking photos in JPEG or in RAW? This can be reason number 10 for blurry photos. New cameras allow you to shoot in quite high ISO while the photos will still look great, but if you shoot in JPEG and you have ISO way too high, you're not going to like the result too much. Once the camera fine-tunes the photo with noise reduction, it will be a bit soft. In low light, always shoot RAW. There will be more data in the image, certainly more detail. Besides keeping your lenses and sensor clean, and this applies to smartphones as well, grab the smartphone, wipe the lenses once in a while. I don't even want to know what some people have all over their lenses. Another reason for blurry photos could simply be outdated, slow cameras, and just low quality lenses. Some lenses are simply soft. They are sharp in the middle, but softer at the edges. And I see it when I review lenses on this channel. For example, this kit lens is absolutely bad compared to this prime lens. It is slow, bad in low light. This one is fast and great in low light. Each lens is the sharpest at certain aperture setting. So you should be paying attention every time you're watching a lens review before you purchase the lens, so you know all the good things about the lens and also you know all the limitations you're going to face. I'm going to list a whole bunch of videos I created in the past where you can learn about focus and aperture. You will find it below the video in the video description for those interested. Creative Camera Challenge announcement time. The outdoor season is just starting, at least here in Canada. You have exactly 2 months until May 21st, 2022 to capture any outdoor photos which cannot be blurry. They need to be sharp where it is intended to be. Apply any of the tips you learned in today's video. Landscape, movement, low light photos, objects, anything goes. All need to be taken outdoors. The most interesting shot will win $50 Amazon gift card. Feel free to comment what gear you were using and camera settings. You can upload your photos to ZD Camera Challenge Facebook group. The link is below in a video description. Best of luck! Give it a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and don't forget to subscribe for more. If you have any questions, comments, simply want to say hello, as I always read it all, leave it below, and I'll see you, my friends, in the next video. Ciao! Ahoj!